All right.
So this last question, number 7 here for today, reads, no name on this one. Recently, well, here's a name. Here's a name we all know. Mike O'Hearn was heard during an interview saying that it was possible with a great lifestyle, great diet, and regular training or working out, that it was possible to keep a high testosterone level no matter what age. Do you agree with that statement?
That's a good one.
Well, I was going to say I was going to maybe play a semantic game here, but of course it is. You can always use testosterone replacement therapy and you can keep it where it's optimal your whole life, right? But I think
No, because he claims natural. He claims that.
Well,
I think that the whole interview was that I think it was a guy named Kenny Ko who interviewed him and said he always goes to bodybuilders, in the industry and say, "Are you on TRT? Are you and he likes to put them out there." Mm-hmm. So Mike has been claimed natural for a lifetime. So he was trying to say, well, it's normal for testosterone to degrade as you get older, and Mike was like saying no, it's not always the case.
Well, I mean, I know Mike because I know him from the gym,
of course,
right?
Of course.
At Venice, he's practically part of the landmark there, right? And I mean, I've seen him. Can I tell you a great story about Mike?
Yeah.
So back in my Olympic lifting days, we're doing the overhead squats with 100 kilos, and it was it's a workout. It was for me. I mean, I was a master athlete at that time. So it's basically 2 1/4 while you got it over your head and you're doing deep squats, simulating a snatch, right, coming off the bottom, and Mike in his usual way, comes over there and he was being Mike, and then he said, "Well, what are you guys doing?" And told him. And he says, well, let me jump in. And, Mike is one of the strongest guys I've ever met, right?
Crazy.
He is crazy strong. Let me just say this for the record. This will help answer the question. Mike's a freak of nature, right?
Freak.
So Mike goes over there and he gets underneath it. And the first 2 or 3 reps, he kind of wobbles a little bit. And that's not like Mike at all. But, it's all relative. But, first of all, you got to have shoulders that are loose enough to do it. It's not something you just jump into. But to his credit, man, the guy finished like 10 reps, racked it, and was done with it. It's like, who does that? Like, really, who does that?
Mike does.
So, and I don't know how old Mike is, but, look.
He's got to be like 53 now.
It's working for him so far, but I would have to take exception. And, I can't give him a hard time because if he hadn't hit that wall yet, he hadn't hit that wall yet. But, Mike, if you're out there, buddy, eventually it's going to happen, man. Nobody makes it to 90 or 100. I mean, maybe he's such a freak of nature he will. But, to date, no one's been able to maintain their testosterone levels into those later years. But Mike is a great example of what you can do, certainly, because, God, as far as I know, I mean, no matter what odd time I've been in the gym, Mike's been there. Last time he and Robbie Robinson were doing, pulls off the floor, 3s and 5s at 4:30 in the morning with a bunch of weight,
Yeah.
And Robbie's one of the few guys that can keep up with him. And I say keep up with him, all the guys that train with him are either not even trying to compete, or if they are, they're not competing for long. You know what I mean? It's not a good idea to compete with Mike. But anyway, not to blow too much sunshine up Mike, but he is an example of someone who's completely devoted to working out and eating right and getting enough rest. But I guess what the take home is, he never overdoes it though. He's very meticulous, as far as I can tell from, I keep hitting that thing, sorry, from what I've talked to him about and, at the gym, what I see him doing, et cetera. He's very smart. He doesn't have, a UPS job that he has to then go up and down the truck steps after he's done a hellacious squat workout. So, and it's not a knock against him. I'm just saying he's an unusual case is all I'm saying.
Right.
For the average person, I want to take what Mike said and just say that applies to Mike. Okay. But the average person is going to certainly benefit from great lifestyle, great diet, and regular training or working out, but you're not going to be able to keep your testosterone levels up until, into the later years. And if I'm Mike, you could say, well, how do you know that, Ren? Just because the studies say, by definition, paraandropause starts at age 35. That's just the average person, That's kind of to my point, though. Yeah, Mike, but you're a freak of nature, man. So
He's
the average person is going to experience that.
Yeah, he's the exception to the rule, which is there's always one out there.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, he is a freak.
Man, I've seen him. We don't need to talk about Mike necessarily, but yeah, God bless him. I've seen him at 2.25 shredded, and then 6 months later, or vice versa, at 285, just a beast. And I've seen him and Tito, Tito Ramon, pulling 7-8 plates off the floor as part of their workout multiple times, like it was a walk in the park, man. So, and this is, I guess, this is and not to go too far afield here, but this was published in an article, at least I saw it in the Wall Street Journal pretty recently, where I want to say his name is Greg. He's one of the bodybuilders who's got to be probably master's age by now. And I won't name his name now, even though I think about it, because I don't want to hopefully make a mistake if he's not. But I'm pretty sure he's retired. But they asked him, honestly, or he answered honestly, presumably, because he said, yeah, I'm taking this, that, and the other. I think that's great because, for people to have unrealistic expectations, if nothing else, forget about the unnecessary gnashing of teeth at night. How come I'm not doing this? It leads to injury. That sucks. When you're on injury reserve, then the game's over for a while, And to think that, for example, you're going to go in there and squat like Michael Hearn. I mean, God bless you if you're another freak of nature that can, but the average person can't. So, take what he says, not as a grain of salt, but as it applies to Mike, not the average being, right? So, anyway, I hope that's helpful, but...
that was a good question.
Yeah, eventually all our testosterone levels are going to plummet, at one point or another.
Okay. Maybe I'll send that question to Mike.
Yeah.
All right.
So this next question is from a guy calls himself Jack Yeoman. Everyone talking about adverse effects on lipid profiles. When your diet is on point alongside training, don't you think this offsets these effects? Like adverse effects on lipids is not a big consideration in my opinion. Chances are if you're eating right and training hard, your cholesterol intake is healthier, he puts in quotes, than 90% of the population. Unless you have some sort of familiar hypercholesteremia, then that's a different story, ... Okay, this is another one where I could probably talk for too many people's taste, but this opens up a lot of cans here as far as I'm concerned. So first of all, adverse effects on lipid profiles, from what I'm presuming he means, is anabolic steroids. They all, and it's rare you can say all or everyone, they all have what is referred to as a negative effect on lipids. And that's because it is assumed that a rise in your LDL and or a diminishment of your HDL cholesterol is a bad thing, okay? Now that opens up a whole thing. Haven't we talked about lipids and how,
we have in the past,
good and bad? Well, okay, real quick then. We have talked about it before?
Yeah, but we've been doing this for a few years.
Okay, a little refresher. Okay, sorry. So, LDL, low density lipoprotein, is just a carrier, okay, of cholesterol. HDL, high density lipoprotein, is also a carrier of cholesterol. But one's going one way, the LDL is going from the liver out into the vasculature, the other's going the other way. So it's just two different buses here carrying cholesterol. The other one being the HDL going from the blood vessels back into the liver and eventually excreted, right? Now, cholesterol is a very important lipid. It's from where we get testosterone and estrogen and all these so-called sex hormones, right? So it's not like it's a bad thing. And I think I've used the analogy, it's like calling gasoline bad. Well, gasoline runs your car, your lawnmower, your chainsaw. I wouldn't leave it next to my acetylene torch in my garage. That'd be pretty stupid. And if I had a house fire, I'd get that 5 gallons out of the garage if I could. Otherwise, that could be an explosive issue and burn even more. But by its very nature, it's not bad cholesterol, I'm saying. If you have the house fire, if you have inflammation in the arteries, then it becomes a bad thing, in the sense that it can further this process that Mother Nature has designed, okay, which doesn't work for us very well, because 300 years ago it worked great. You weren't going to die of plaque in your arteries probably. You'd be dead by the time you were 30 to 35, just 300 years ago. So that was an issue. But if you had inflammation and needed to have it walled off, your immune system would come along, starting with the monocytes, and finish with this packing of cholesterol and other things along the artery wall. Okay, well, that can become a problem if we've doubled life expectancy. Okay, well, we know that, and I know I've said this before because I repeat Dr. Gramer's same joke he used to use with me a long time ago. We know that we want to get cholesterol away, so we away from the issue if we have extant coronary artery disease. So we want it moving out of the blood vessels and back into the liver. So to lower cholesterol, particularly the one going the wrong direction for us, we know works. So the website, to borrow from Dr. Gramer, that says that LDL cholesterol, statins, I should say, doesn't work to reverse, stop or slow coronary artery disease is right next to the one that says that no Jews were killed by Nazis in World War II and we haven't landed on the moon yet. The medications work to some degrees more than others, and we've advanced our knowledge and our weapons in terms of lowering cholesterol by different mechanisms. But the fact is, it works to treat that disease, coronary artery disease, plaque in the arteries. But I wouldn't necessarily give you, say, an antibiotic if you didn't have an infection, would I? Right? Now, to use that analogy in real life, yes, if I knew there was an issue with the heart, like when you go into dentist office and you've got an issue with a valve in your heart, for example, they'll give you what they call prophylactic antibiotics because they don't want to create more of an issue. They want to reduce the potential of any risk, and that's another topic. But the example I use to make it pretty plain to doctor or otherwise is think about the recent fad. I don't want to call it fad, that's not fair, but the recent addition to our dietary arrows in the quiver, the ketogenic diet. And especially in this country, and people are proud of the dirty keto where they're eating a lot of saturated fat, which tends to end up on the truck going the wrong way into the arteries, right? It develops that LDL molecule, LDL cholesterol molecule. If LDL were the problem, if it were the protagonist in this, if it actually started the problem, right, as opposed to being a part of the problem, okay, people would be dropping dead left and right. I had a person in my office just last week, or maybe it was this week, with a LDL of 284. That's off the charts, compared to the average, let's say, or what's optimal, let's say. And so we know it doesn't cause it, but it can certainly further it. So getting back to the question, sorry, I go off in tangents, as you well know. This I do like in Jack Yeoman's question / statement here. Yes, what's really interesting is I've had people come in whose lipid profile was, per the standards, horrific, meaning their HDL was below normal, their LDL was above normal, and normal goes into a whole other concept here, but we'll say below optimal and above optimal. How's that? And I guess just as importantly, or more importantly, their triglycerides were way too high. And that I will say, if it's in anything but double digits, we're not happy. And the standard, like LabCorp, goes to 149. I don't care. That's still not healthy. And who cares about normal? We go off on that tangent all day long. But we can control, and sometimes because we need to use an anabolic steroid, okay, we address it up front. We can actually improve lipid profiles to better than when the patient started while on an anabolic steroid than not. Because yes, we have all kinds of things, and not necessarily statins. You can change your dirty keto. Now, why you want to do that is a whole other question. Going back to what I said, if you don't have extant coronary artery disease or any increased risk factors for it, who cares? But if you do, and you're focused on lipids, he's right. You can change the way you eat, the way you train, and with supplements and drugs, improve what it looks like per our standard of care ideal of what it should look like. Okay. And then he mentions, if you've got it, so just to put a footnote on there, I think where he's going with it is, even if you don't have extant coronary artery disease, if you have an increased risk for it developing because you have a first degree relative, he refers to it as familial hypercholesteremia, which really isn't fair. It really has someone close to you in your family develop coronary artery disease. And I realize there's all kinds of reasons. You could be drinking a handle of rum every day and smoking 2 packs of cigarettes, but you still have to treat it as though it's an increased genetic risk, then you might consider, not taking an anabolic steroid because of its effect on the lipids, or certainly adjusting for it with some of the things I mentioned.
Awesome.
All right.
Thanks, Doc.
Thanks.